on the topic of safety, our next question is also from the audience here. His name is Chris. Chris, yell out. Where are you? Here we go. Same spot as Suki. Hi.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Mr. President. Thank you for coming to Lancaster. As the Lancaster County Sheriff, I'm committed to upholding public safety and reducing crime in our community by working closely with local law enforcement and other partners. How does your plan for law and order in your next term support local sheriffs, like myself, to ensure we have the resources needed to protect our communities?
Great question. Are you the current sheriff?
I am. Yes,
wow,
yes, sir.
Wow, that's pretty good. You look like it. That's pretty good.
Can I, real quickly, this is a statistic that I know you know, Chris. In the Commonwealth, 49 of 67 county sheriffs have endorsed Donald J. Trump.
I was one of them.
And the rest are coming because nobody's endorsing. We have the endorsement of almost every law enforcement agency group in the country, so it's good. They have none. I don't think they have any. So thank you very much. I'll give you an answer to that. So we have to protect our law enforcement. We have to indemnify them against the bad things. You know, if you do your job well, oftentimes they go after you. They want your house. They want your pension. They want to fire you. They want to. We can't have that. We have great people, and we have people that have to be given back their authority and their respect because our cities are blowing up. We had the worst crime that we've ever had in the last year. Remember the other day, pretty recently, we were at the debate where I was debating with David Muir of ABC Fake News. And I said, we have crime at a level that we've never had it. And a lot of it's migrant crime now. The migrants are coming and they're causing crime and they're tough as hell. And they're causing tremendous, they're taking over like Aurora and in Colorado. And I mean, they're taking over buildings. They're in the real estate business all of a sudden, but they're vicious people and they're taking over. And he said, no, the crime is down. Crime is down. I said, crime's not down. No, it's down. The following day, they released the figures, and crime is up 45%. And I haven't gotten this guy, David Muir. Everything I said, I said, who am I debating here? I had two of them from ABC, and I had her. She was the easy one, but they were terrible. They never questioned her on one thing, but he said, crime is down. No, crime is way up. And the FBI, we have to look at this, because the FBI put out charts that crime was down initially, because they didn't report certain little areas of the country, like the worst areas in the country for crime. And it turned out that their stats were very wrong and very misleading. But he was wrong because it's up like at least 45%. That's an incredible. You take a look at Venezuela, take a look at some of these countries that are taking all their gang members and their criminals off the streets and giving them to us. Their crime is down 40, 50, 60, 70%. So we're going to give you back the dignity and the respect. You know, we have great respect for you, and we're not going to let this happen. You can stop crime. You just have to be given the go-ahead. You go to Chicago, you go to a lot of cities, and they rob a department store, and guys are walking out with refrigerators. They have it on their back with two friends, and air conditioning, and everything. And they literally are stripping, and the police are standing outside, and they're shaking out of anger because they really want to do something, but they're told to stand down, and they're watching these criminals walk out. We're not going to have that happen. We're not going to let that happen. So thank you very much, Sheriff. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know, I think, unfortunately, since you left office, and certainly 2020 and COVID and George Floyd, I mean, it has been tough, and that's why I think we're all so grateful for the men and women in blue, because you do put your lives on the line every single day. So thank you, Chris, honestly, and for being a leader there. But I'm sure that is something that these sheriffs have to worry about, to encourage men and women to come back to the police force, that they will be supported on a federal level.
It's become more and more dangerous. I mean, I visited a great family in Long Island where a policeman who was killed said, please open the door. They opened the door and they start firing. The windows were darkened. They opened the door and they start firing. There's not a thing you could do, even if you were allowed, and they're not allowed, to open the door with a gun in your hand. You're still not going to make it because you can't beat that kind of speed. I mean, he's got a gun. And they started firing. He died. I went to the funeral. He died, and I paid my respects to the most beautiful family, and they can't even believe it. But the wife was telling me that she was so afraid it was going to happen. And things are happening today. It's a very dangerous profession. Of course, being president is a very dangerous profession. You know, we were going over that the other day. 1/10 of 1% of race car drivers, that's pretty dangerous, right? 1/10 of 1% race car drivers die. 1/10 of 1%, these guys that ride the bulls, I mean, say what you want. They are very brave. That is, but 1/10 of 1%, similar to like the race car stuff. With presidents, it's a lot of them. If you think about it, you know, you had Lincoln and Kennedy and McKinley and this and that, or get shot at, many shot at, Reagan and Ford. And this is a very dangerous profession, but I wouldn't change it for anything because we're going to turn our country around. We're going to turn our country around, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it fast. Fast. Thank you.
And it does start with Americans being able to feel safe in their cities and towns every single day. It's interesting because was it just this past week when you sat down with the Wall Street Journal and called them out on a couple of things, I think it's safe to say. Is that the best way to describe it? He let them know what he thought about the ways that they had reported things and certainly the way that even questions were being asked. And if you look back at that factually, whether it be tariffs, whether it be crime, like we were just discussing, whether it be the border, whether it be COVID. They were wrong about a lot of things, and you called them out on that. In particular, with what we were talking about with the southern border.
Well, we have to take care of our border. Our border is so important. And, you look, it's just common sense. People are coming through that are criminals. You're going to have more crime. And if you remember where Kamala was saying, no, the people that come into our country, they don't commit crime. They are far tougher. The one thing nice, our criminals look like very nice people by comparison. These people are vicious. The level, you just take a look at some of these gangs that are coming in. So our criminals look much nicer than they used to. That's the only thing we can say, but that's not much. The Wall Street Journal was interested. I had like a 2.5-hour meeting with them, and it was a great meeting. I respect the Wall Street Journal a lot. And we had with the editorial board, and they actually wrote a beautiful story about it, but the one thing they said that was great, we've watched this guy for 20 years. The one thing we know is that he's got no cognitive problem. I have no cognitive. She may have a cognitive problem, but there's no cognitive problem. It was nice that they actually said that. They said, you know, if anyone has any questions, we were grilling this guy for 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Got no cognitive. In fact, if anything, he's maybe better. I don't even know if I like this. Maybe he's better than he was 20 years ago. So anyway, no, and I actually called for a cognitive test for all people wanting to run for president. I think not based on age. You know, some of the greatest leaders in the world, and I'm not 80, and I'm not that close to 80, but in the Biden case, he's 81 or 82. And, you know, that's okay because I know people that are unbelievably successful. By the way, a man who's very successful is Rupert Murdoch, and he's 93 or 94. He was at a meeting that I had the following day, and he's sharp as you can be. I mean, he's the same guy that I've known for 25, 30 years. He's sharp, and he's in his 90s. We've had some of the greatest leaders in world history that are in their 80s, and but it was very interesting because in reading the article, it was a great article. But I appreciated that they said that. It's very nice that they say it. I've done cognitive tests. I've done them twice, and I aced both of them. And the doctor, in one case, said, I've never seen anybody ace them. They've never seen anybody ace them. But I'd like to see cognitive tests for anybody running for president or vice president. I think it's important in a way.
And it should have nothing to do with the number, the age, in my opinion.
No,
it's all about the test and turn them in and make that part of the requirement.
Everybody. You know, I did ask about it, though. Why can't they? They say it's unconstitutional, which I think is too bad or ridiculous. But I'd like to see that. I think it would be great if we could have, you know, good, strong tests for people that are running for president, vice president. They do say, however, it's unconstitutional. Who likes the idea of that? I do. Yeah.
Well, there's an age minimum. So add that to it, 35 years and a
right.
cognitive test.
Yeah.
Because you could be 41 and have cognitive issues, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's
I've said it for a long time, and I think it would be a great thing if we could do it.
Let me ask you one more time to wrap up the topic of the border, because the second you left office and Biden-Harris took over, they immediately implemented changes and changed drastically so many of these
99
things.
changes, can you believe?
Immediately.
Like remain in Mexico. Like you got to remain in Mexico. You can't. That's a little change, right? And you think that was easy to get from Mexico? I said, we want to, and because of tariffs, I said, look, if you don't agree, I'm going to charge you 25% tariffs. They said, we would love them to remain in Mexico. I'll never forget. They were so against it.
So how quickly can these be implemented again and changes made?
Almost immediately. Remember one thing. I watched her the other night about a bill. The bill was a disaster, by the way. It was a horrible bill. Would have let people have immunity. It would have given people, millions of people would have allowed it to come in aimlessly. It was a hopeless, horrible bill. But she always uses that. And we would institute, she's trying to get tough now on the border. After 4 years of destroying our country, now all of a sudden, a couple of months ago, they went to a little bit tougher. The only thing she didn't stop are airplanes flying over the border, loaded up. You know how many people? Hundreds of thousands of people come in by airplane. They didn't stop that. They forgot. I think they said they forgot. They want to show a little toughness. But look, we need strong borders. We need great elections. If we don't have great elections and strong borders, then we don't have a country. Those two things and other things, but those two things are at the top of the list. We have to have strong borders. And we want people to come in.
Yes.
But we want people to come in that can really do it, that can do a job. And we're going to get that. We're going to get that. But we have to get rid of the people. We have to get rid of the people that are now there. She is so bad. Remember what she said.
I'm sorry, when you say get rid of the people who are there, some of the illegals that are here?
No. I'm talking about the politicians.
The politicians,
that are allowing
okay,
this
I'm
to
making
happen.
sure.
No, we have to get rid of the politicians. And remember what she said? She was interviewed on numerous shows and she couldn't come up. What would you do different? I can't think of anything. I don't know. She can't think. Do you know that 325,000, now think of a stadium, a big stadium being filled up many times. 325,000 children are dead or missing under there. They came across the border or they didn't. They're all dead, missing, or into sex slavery or slavery. 325, many of them are dead. I'm sure many of them are dead. Probably their parents will never see their parents like any parent. They want to see them. They get kidnapped, they get taken. 300, and they come through an open border. They're missing or dead, or they're in slavery. 325,000. Think of that. Think of what that means. The numbers, like unheard of. And remember, what would you do different? Nothing. I wouldn't do anything different. So immediately she's disqualified because he's the worst president in our history. She's the worst vice president in our history. And to think that, she's running for president is pretty ridiculous.
I feel like you all will agree with me that this is no one here or in this country that I speak to, and you speak to a lot more people than I do, is anti-immigration. It's about doing it the right way. And now we sit here, and I know you hear this everywhere you go, Mr. President, where you hear people saying, send them back, send them back. That process is not easy. No, but we obviously cannot even take care of the tax-paying Americans in this country. Yeah. So when you hear send them back, and some should be sent back based on a quote-unquote resume, what is that process like?
So let me just tell you, again, it gets down to the sheriff and local police. They know everybody in town. They know their names, their middle names. They have serial numbers. They've got everything. They know everything. They know all about these horrible criminals coming in from Venezuela, coming in from Colombia. They know everyone. Local police. The local police will work with others. And look, from a practical standpoint, it's very tough because there'll be one woman with two beautiful children who gets brought back, and there'll be tears, and the Times and all these crazy newspapers will do stories about one person when so it's a very difficult thing. But we start with the murderers. We know who they are. We don't know everything about them because they've been let in without being vetted. But we start with the murders. Nobody wants to have murders. These are people that some were getting the death penalty. They were going to be executed in their own. Some killed more than 5 people. Some killed more than 2 people. One killed like 9 or 10 people. We want them out. We start with them. We start with the drug dealers. We start with the people that are causing. Oh, by the way, you start also with the terrorists. You got to get them out. And then we start figuring out what the hell we're going to do, because what they've done to our country, what they have done, and I'll tell you who is affected most, the black population, the Hispanic population, because their jobs are being lost. People that had jobs for years are losing their job now to people that came into our country illegally. So that's a really, and they're starting to see it. You know, the black population over the last short period of time, their numbers, their unemployment numbers have just skyrocketed. The reason is people coming into the country illegally are taking their jobs. So, and I'll tell you what's going to be affected very much are going to be unions. But you're going to see things happening that are just, it's just too much. In one town in Ohio, a town of, think of this, a town of 52,000 people, they put 32,000 illegal migrants in this town, right? 32,000 illegal migrants into a 52,000 people town. In Aurora, they have people that are running out and walking down the streets carrying weapons. And the landlords of the building is saying, I don't know what I'm going to do here. They're collecting the rent in the building for themselves. I mean, and this is happening all over. This is happening all over the country. You know, we mentioned a few different places. And a lot of mayors don't want to talk about it because it's bad for the reputation of the state and the town or the city that they're in. But look at New York, what's happened. Look at Chicago. Look at Los Angeles, what's happening. Our country's being destroyed by incompetent politicians. And, you know, all they have to do, remember this, when they say a bill, she always said the bill wasn't passed because the Senate wouldn't want to go against Trump. It had nothing to do with me. The bill was no good. But listen, all the president has to do is she gets to the White House, wakes him up. They call because it's after 4 o'clock. He sleeps after 4 o'clock. Get him the hell down to the Oval Office and say, President, sign the bill. All he has to do is say, the borders are closed. Tell that to the Great Border Patrol. The borders are closed, and those borders, that's what I did. I didn't have a bill. I had the best border maybe ever. I didn't have a bill. I just said, close the borders now. And they were closed. You don't need a bill for that.
They have been saying that for years now, that they needed to get it approved in Congress and all.
You don't need a bill. I didn't have a bill. I didn't have a bill. I said, close the borders. You know, my father used to tell me when, like, we'd hire some guy and, sir, could I have a letter of authorization that I got this job? And my father always used to say to me, you know, son, every time they need a letter, they never work out to be any good. The guys that don't need a letter, those are the ones that you want. Because when they ask for a letter, that means they don't have it. This guy, so what happens is you call up the head of the Border Patrol, you call up the group, and you say, effective immediately, the borders are closed, and they close up. And that's what I had. I didn't have a bill. I closed up the borders.
And the billions of dollars that are being spent across the country to pay for the education, the health care, the rent, the insurance for illegal aliens can go to Americans, can go to minorities, can be spent on veterans who are on the streets homeless. So I have hope, and we're going to hold you to this.
But, you know, it's not financially feasible or sustainable for us to be paying for hundreds, not for hundreds, for millions and millions of people. It's estimated now that the real number is over 21 million people in 3.5. 21 million people came into this country. Many of them are seriously bad people.
And that's why the graphic is the best graphic ever.
I was wondering who that was. It's the fake news. Oh. No, these guys are great. These are the photographers. When they take good pictures, I like them. When they take bad pictures of me, I don't like them. They usually turn out to be not so nice, but that's okay. Here's a man. Pulitzer Prize, Doug. Pulitzer Prize. It's the only thing good about the New York Times is Doug. Pulitzer Prize, everybody. Pretty good. He's good. He's a good guy. They're all good guys. Very talented guys. Good.
Yes, we pay extra close attention to any movement up near the
I was
stage.
wondering
these
who's
days,
coming
don't we?
in. I was getting ready. Put up your dukes. Here we go.